What's up YouTube? Barcode here. I'm bringing you another Epic 7 video. This video is going to be about free-to-play mainly, what connections to focus on, and I'll also mention some 3-star, easy-to-obtain free-to-play player characters that will benefit you in the game progressing. This is mainly for free-to-play players or very small minnows that don't have the multiple amount of summons and you might get some of these characters in the game. So let's start with the connection. So on the left side there's that little person character there. It changes randomly, but that's the connection screen. So if you click on that, it'll take you to the connection screens. So you do start out with Aether, just getting her through the tutorial, and it kind of shows you exactly how to get these characters. But the ones I really want to mention right off the bat and what you guys should focus on is there's two mainly to start out with. One is going to be Silk. Silk is definitely by far the best free-to-play connection that you can get. That will progress you and help you in the game. I am free to play, and when I got Silk, before her I was stuck on 10-10 normal difficulty. Once I got her, leveled her up, and awoken her to her 3rd star level, which helps with getting the last skill to increase the speed of your team as well as decrease the speed of the enemy team. That just helped so much, and I beat 10-10 on the first try. Her skills are that attacks all the enemies with her ultimate, decreasing the speed of them, increasing the speed of you. So you're gaining a double speed bonus once you use that skill. Her concentration, which is like her passive, she gains 1 focus at the end of the turn, consumes 2 focus when attacked. If the caster's stacked focus is more than 2, single shot is enhanced to automatically fire and deal damage. Her first skill and her basic skill is single shot. Shoots arrows, decreasing the enemy's combat readiness by 7%. And once you use a burn on this too, she'll gain an extra turn and go again. So if you're manualing this, like on 10-10, just to try to beat it, this is huge. I mean, she can do a ton of damage because it's based off of speed. You just build her a speed, crit, and attack. And it can do a ton of damage. So if you're manualing, I would definitely use burn on her to decrease the enemy's combat readiness and everything like that. So definitely first character you should definitely focus on. You might get another character prior to that in the connections, which is fine, but definitely focus on her. The second one would be Elson. So Elson is a huge help, is more of a support character, shouldn't be used as like a single healer because he doesn't heal for much. But I will go ahead and show you his skills. The first one would be his last skill, which he uses first, increases attack and defense of your team. So that's a huge attack burst and a huge defensive mechanism for him and your team. So a lot of people build him on speed so that in arena teams you can focus on using that, and then your team can just do their thing. Attacks all enemies on the second skill and recovers health of all allies, and that's proportionate to the enemy's max health. So using that, it doesn't really heal for much unless you're on a higher stage and a harder stage, but it still doesn't heal for a lot. Unless you have him on super high speed and have him maxed all the way, which it doesn't really lower the cooldown, but with Silk, with that, increasing your speed, decreasing the enemy's speed, he could get that off maybe 2 times and be a single healer for certain stages, but he's not primarily a healer, he's more of a support type. First skill decreases the attack of the enemy. The third character I want to show for free-to-play players to try to get is Lorena. And Lorena is special because she is one of 2 characters that you can like enhance, and I'll show you that, enhance their skills to make her a little bit better. But she's an amazing and hard-hitting single target damage dealer, and definitely somebody to build. So the last skill, jumps in the air, strikes down the enemy, dealing proportionate to the amount of enemy's lost HP. The second passive, which is amazing, stacks up to 5 times, increases attack by 10% each time she attacks an enemy. So when she gets to 5 turns, her attack is increased by 50%. Okay, so that's huge. It does a ton of damage. And then her main skill increases her combat readiness. So you kind of want to get a lot of speed subs on her, but I would still build her like attack crit damage attack or attack crit attack, you know, wherever your gear is currently. But putting on her vamp, like vampire, or should I say lifesteal, whatever you want to call the gear, it's just super beneficial to her. It just depends on your gear. High HP subs, high speed subs, and crit if you're going to crit damage build, but definitely a good champion to work on. Other than that, you can work on the other ones, which is totally fine. I'm going to talk about Alexa in a little bit. But definitely go ahead and try to work on for your 4th connection before anything else is Yuna. I mean, it's a free 5-star unit. She's water, does a ton of AoE damage on her last skill, and then buffs attack and speed on the 2nd skill for your team. So, you know, and then she attacks all the enemies on her basic. So using her, it's just great. I mean, it's just a ton of AoE damage that she can do, okay? So let's go ahead and go into just a lot of 3-star characters. You guys are summoning, you know, might not have the best RNG in the world, so I want to go into that. Before I do, I want to talk about 2 characters, especially if you go down to the hero button at the bottom left and go into specialty change, you're going to see 2 champions here. It's Clary and Lorena, okay? So let's talk about Lorena first. Lorena, when she gets specialized, she gets a different skill, and I'll go into that. Same with Clary, but it's definitely 2 champions, and Clary is great as a nature tank, just as a 3-star unit. So I would definitely build her if you don't have a better tank, obviously. But I'm going to show you what they enhance into, and they can be definitely beneficial, especially Clary when you enhance her. So she'll turn into Falconer Clary. She still has the same skill on her first, increases her own combat readiness proportionate to your caster's defense. Recovers 5% health at the beginning of every turn. It's the same as a regular Clary. Her last skill is awesome. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of base speed, but you know, you put her on good speed subs as a frontline tank, she just brings more utility. So the Hawk will fly towards the enemy. 75% chance to dispel all buffs and to provoke for 2 turns and decrease their defense. So, you know, it depends on your team comp, really. This is only a single target, but it can be huge to decrease the defense and provoke and dispel all buffs if they have immunity. And if you have somebody like Sev who can do a ton of single target damage on the ultimate and then does damage as well if that enemy dies, that could be huge. If you have, you know, use Elson, Clary, and Sev together, and you speed to them to go in order correctly, Sev can wipe a team by himself. So just something to think about. You know, not Clary, Falconer Clary isn't really someone that you might want to maybe like focus on early, but it's just an option for team comp. So Lorena as well, once you enhance her, it decreases the enemy of by 15% their combat readiness. So that's an actual added bonus to her ultimate. So that can be awesome as well. And just how hard she hits, it's just someone great to build. I do want to talk about some other highly mentionable teams, characters that you will obviously get more, and they're easy to skill up. Is Helga. So Helga is your, you know, your fake Elson, but she does a ton of damage. I built her to 5 stars, but I did feed her off because I have a ton of nature nat 5-star champions that I use, so I fed her off, and I already have an attack buff in 2 different spots. So she increases attack for 2 turns, and she has some pretty decent base speed. I think it's better than Elson's, so it's just great. Attack buff is huge, and then if she has a defense break on her first turn, so that brings the defense buff, and then this second skill, when you critical hit, it extends the buffs on her, so she gets an extra turn of her own attack buff when you build her for crit, and it does a ton of damage. So she's just somebody definitely that you should you know, think about if you need a nature character with an armor break and maybe an attack buff. So let's go into another 3-star character that I actually like, and I did build, but I have someone better. Judge Kisei, hello. but it's Adley. So Adley is a 3-star character, again, nature, but she's like, he's like the hand-me-down Judge Kisei. I mean, very cheap, free-to-play, you get it all the time, but is great. And he's actually an amazing farmer. Not, you know, there may be 5-star characters, obviously, and 4-star characters that are better, but if you can't get anything better, Adley's a really decent farmer, and I'll tell you why. So the last skill, huge damage to all enemies, increasing their school cooldown by 1. So if you're fighting an enemy team that has a healer and you don't want her to heal, you know, there's many ways to get around someone not using their turns, and that's provoke, silence, and then skill increase. And this is pretty huge for a 3-star character and does a lot of damage. And he's a mage, so if you put like the stun artifact on him, it's just more utility to use, so it's good. So this is why I say that Adley is a really good farmer for the 3-star character. Is heroic, passive, combat ready, increased by 9% every time an ally is attacked, but if an ally dies, the school cooldown is reset. So obviously you're bringing in like the Giga Phantasmas or whatever to level them up to, you know, to 5-star, 6-star your characters. So he will do his AoE. Hopefully your Giga Phantasma should have like 1% health while you're farming. He dies, and then Adley gets all of his school cooldowns and does his AoE again. So it's just huge. And if you're bringing the 3-star yellow Giga Phantasma and the 2-star white Giga Phantasma, and they both die, you're gonna have 3 AoEs back to back. So just a great 3-star farmer in my opinion. Definitely somebody you should use until you get somebody better. Another 2 honorable mentions for this is mainly for bosses for free to play. One is Kiris, which, let me find her. Kiris. It's just right here. So, and this is, I want to tell you about these type of characters. So, poison characters. Regarding like bleed and burn are based off of attack, like proportional attack to the caster. So, you have to have really good runes gear to be able to maximize that type of damage. Poison is only affected by the enemy's max HP. So anybody that has a poison on them and you stack them, it's very beneficial. And every time the boss takes a turn, you're gonna do a ton of damage, especially if you stack up. So Kiris does 3 on her ultimate and also has a chance to inflict poison again on her basic skill. And then her second skill hits all enemies, extending any debuffs. So you extend the poisons. And if you have multiple people on your team that do poisons, every single turn, the boss, you know, I'm talking about like the hunt dungeons when you're trying to farm. If you stack them, it's great. So if you bring like for the water hunt or whatever, if you bring Kiris, and then you also bring another 3-star character that I want to talk about, which is also on the connections too. It's Alexa. Alexa will, on her ultimate, dealing damage proportional to number of debuffs inflicted, but she also does 2 poison effects for 2 turns, and then increases her own combat readiness on that skill, and then a critical hit on her will grant an extra attack, so lowering the cooldowns, you know, because she gets an extra attack on, you know, the 3rd skill and the 2nd skill, being able to do more poisons quickly. So 2 poison characters that I just wanted to talk about and bring up, so definitely important. I do want to bring up, I know in my last video I talked about with the gold transmit stones, talking about only using them on light and dark. Some people might, you know, that's kind of controversial, but that's just my opinion. I like to summon, so any chance I get, I do. So I'll buy the 950 Skystone pack and start summoning when I have about 1,500 gems. So using the gold transmits on the 4 to 5-star when I already have 5 Nat 5 characters and a couple of 4-star characters. I just think going with the light and dark route is more beneficial. And I want to talk about just 1, 2, 3, 4 light and dark characters if you do pull them that are pretty good to use. The first one would be Requiem Roar. Okay, you know my pronunciation with names sucks. Her ultimate decreased 75% chance, okay, which can be 100% if you skill her up completely, which is huge. There's not a lot of characters that have that, but it decreases the defense by 100% for 2 turns, increases combat readiness of all allies at the same time. So you make her super fast. She doesn't have really great base speed, but again, that's when gear comes into the play. But you start her off as the fastest, 75% chance, fully skilled 100%, decrease the defense of the enemy, increase combat readiness of all your allies, and then you can speed tune them to, you know, do an attack buff, and then 2 nukers. Okay, so it's pretty huge. She also all allies absorb 5% of the damage they deal, and it's like lifesteal. So 5% of the damage they do, they get that back, and then they recover 15% health anytime an enemy dies. So that's a great skill. I mean, it's an attack, I guess like a damage dealer type support type of character, and she also decreases attack for 1 turn. The other one I want to talk about is Haruda. So Haruda, which reminds me of Overwatch for some reason, or Street Fighter, Dallasem, attacks all enemies with dark magic with 80% chance to dispel all buffs before decreasing their combat rate. So if the enemy team has immunity, you use this to dispel all their buffs. And this can also get to 100%, and then it decreases their combat readiness. So that's pretty sweet. You know, that'll also, you know, speed tune your team to be able to do, you know, wombo combos and things like that. So the decreases regeneration of all enemies by 35% at the beginning of the battle for the 2nd skill, increases combat readiness of 20% when the enemy uses a non-attack skill. So if they heal, it increases this combat readiness of him. And then a silence on a basic attack. You know, the effect chance is only 50% at max skill, but still pretty decent character for light and dark. The other one would be into the light. Oh, I'll go one more dark, and that's Sven. So Sven is a 3-star thief. Huge damage on all enemies on the last skill. But this is a good passive. He doesn't die. So if he takes lethal damage, he will grant immortality and increased attack for 1 turn. So it's kind of like a bunch of AoE teams. You know, if he dies, he won't die, and then he has 1 more chance to, you know, knock somebody out with an attack buff. And then once you're that low at 1%, if you do a basic attack skill, he will go again. So, you know, if it's his first turn and the enemy, you know, knocks him down to 1%, he's gonna go. You want to use your basic attack, so you get 1 extra attack off, and then use your 3rd skill, which hits all enemies. So just a good light and dark thief that one we use. The last one I want to talk about is actually Celeste. So Celeste, she has one of the highest base speeds in the game, especially when you max star her, is 128. And she's more of like a counter type character. So her ultimate is a self-cast. It increases her attack for 2 turns, recovers her health, and then grants her own extra attack turn. So she'll attack buff, heal, and then go again. And then she'll shoot a volley of all arrows at the enemies, decreasing their combat readiness. So having this high base speed, you build her fast, you give her an attack boost, and then herself, and then she decreases all the enemy's combat readiness by 20% so that the rest of your team can go again. This does not increase the cooldown count when the caster's health is 80% or more, so she'll heal, and then she'll use this, but then it doesn't increase the cooldown when her health is more than 80%, so she'll be able to use that again. It's just huge. And then she decreases the hit chance on her basic skill. But those are really the main characters I want to talk about for free to play. There is one honorable mention that I wanted to put on here. She's kind of hard to build, and she is a connection, but you will be able to summon her. I already summoned her, but it's Hazel. She has an attack buff on her 3rd skill, and she's more of a damage dealing type support healer, and that's huge. She'll heal all of her allies, and increasing their attack buff. So this is kind of like a Helga type character, but more of not the damage dealer wise, but a support healer. And all of her heals are based off of her attack. So you want to build her high attack, maybe a little bit of health, but high attack. And then her second one is a single target heal. But her first skill, which can be up to a 50% chance, is a heal block. So this is good on somebody like the nature hunt when you're farming nature, because his minions heal him. And if you use her, she's fire, she has element advantage, she has heal block, but it's a good character to use and to think about when you're free to play. It just gives you more options for element, because the element advantage is huge, like in most games, but this game it's huge as well. So thanks for tuning in. I hope this video helps for free-to-play players, what to focus on, connections and stuff like that. Some of my other videos coming up will be 4-star characters to work on, and like I said before, I'll probably work on some videos of arena comps and the sanctuary, and also gold, how to farm it the best way, and things like that. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll check you guys in the next video. Peace.